So the party just made it to the Nashkel Inn with Quake, and it's now the next morning, and they wake up and they notice Quake is actually gone. So they search his room and still nowhere to be seen. So they come out and come to the common area with the bartender, and they look around. He's nowhere to be seen. The only person here is actually a woman off in the corner, just sitting down at a table. So they, perplexed by this, they're not really sure where he's gone. So they go up to the bartender, Delius, and ask him, well, what happened to the guy we came in with? Where's Quake? And Delius responds that he left way early this morning, and the last thing he told me was that he was going to find his lost lover. So the party, not sure what to make of this, just kind of, and no way to track him down, just, let him go. So they order themselves some drinks and have some breakfast for the morning, and they sit down at one of the tables and just kind of chatting back and forth between each other. And all of a sudden, Rowan notices the woman in the corner. As she's just sitting there at her table, she notices she actually has a heavy crossbow trained on all three of them underneath the table. So Rowan kind of casually tells Taviri and Devia about this, and the two of them kind of glance back and then glance back at Rowan. All three of them look at each other, then immediately draw their weapons, and they start and attacking her, and she in turn attacks them. So yeah, this bar fight just starts to ensue. So I'm not sure if this exactly happened at the time, but I can just picture the party just kicking down that one table they were at, kind of ducking behind cover. Rowan is shooting off her arrows, Diva's shooting off her arrows. But it's at this point, Taviri kind of had a slight, you could say a slight twitch kind of going down her back. And what it was, enough time has passed that she is now able to fly again. So at this point, she then just rushes over and starts unleashing with her quarterstaff onto this woman. And after Taveri successfully takes her down, and also with the help of Rowan and Devia, and they don't kill her, but afterwards they have her down pretty good, and Devia comes over and actually casts Charm Person on her and start asking her all sorts of questions. What's her name, etc. So her name is Alice, and Alice is a bounty hunter, and she has been sent to go after the party, and she actually has a bounty note with her, and it says, "To whom it may concern, the party of Taveri, Devia, and Rowan must be eliminated. 1,000 gold will be rewarded on completion. You must bring back proof of their demise." And it is signed just with the letter S. So the party just kind of thinks about it, who that might be. They haven't really drawn any conclusions on who it might be. So they continue, or mainly Devia continues to keep asking Alice more questions, and more, let's see, Alice kind of explains that she was, I'm sorry, let me think about this, that she was approached by a man in like a dark robe, another hooded figure, shock of all shock, with a black beard, kind of like a goatee, and he looked like a wizard to her. And so that's who she was approached by, and it was actually somewhere back towards Baragost that she was approached, just kind of on the outskirts of town. And but another detail the party found out was she's actually not alone, that there are apparently other bounty hunters in this region, kind of actually keeping their eye and kind of going after the party. So after finding out all this information, the three of them kind of talk it over and decide, well, Alice is still charmed. So the three of them say that, Alice, you should just get out of here. You should just go far, far to the east. So Alice now leaves and is now going far, far to the east. So afterwards, the party kind of straightens out the bar, talk to Delius just a little bit more, kind of apologizing for all the mess that happened, and they finish up eating, and then they head out from the inn. So they get into more into town. It's now, of course, early in the morning, about 9 o'clock, and they notice that one of the buildings in particular, uh, it's a warehouse that's kind of been converted into now kind of like a makeshift garrison. And there's about 10 soldiers. That's the nation that covers the town of Nashkel and then area to the south. So they're stationed here, and um, pretty recently too, within the last say month. But the town of Nashkel itself is just really just has a bunch of miners and farmers, and that's pretty much what makes up the town. Um, the population is, I would say, off the top of my head, about like say 20 people total, including the miners. So they kind of look around town. They actually decide the party actually decides to go to the store first, just to kind of see what the person has. And this is the moment that Taveri had been waiting for, saving up all her money, because she actually found, he was only selling one pair, but she actually found some bracers of ogre power or ogre strength. I think that's what it's called, but the one that raises your strength to 18. So it cost 5,000 gold to buy, and she had just enough to actually buy it. So she immediately purchases it and slaps those on. And so she gets that. I think it's here that Devia actually buys a magical bow as well. And Rowan stocks up on her arrows, and so does Devia, just to get a few more. At this point, they head out from the store and just kind of start chatting around with some of the townsfolk. Devia actually heads over to the temple and grabs a couple more scrolls. One scroll in particular she grabs that's basically higher than what she can normally cast. It's a level 6 spell, but you just have to do a spell save DC to see if you can get it off. But the scroll itself is Word of Recall. She thought that would come in handy later on, and she was right. So that'll come later though. So they start kind of going around the town. Taveri actually talks to a couple of the civilians and finds out that there's actually a leather worker in town, kind of a craftsman, that can make her that wolf hat that she's been wanting to get. So she has the pelt for the vampiric pelt. So she goes to the leather worker, asks if he could do this for her, and he says yes, that he can. And so he says it will take about a day to kind of make this as perfect as she wants it to be. So she says that's fine, that she pays the so much amount of gold to get it done. It didn't take a whole lot, but he said it'll get it done. So she goes to do that, and at this point, the mayor did say to come and talk to them in the morning. So the party was going to do that, but they actually get interrupted. As they were gonna go to the mayor, they actually are approached by a woman frantically, who introduces herself as Samantha, and she's human. And Samantha's actually the one and only quote-unquote rich person of the town. She has a manor just slightly to the north on the edge of town. And she has a manor with a guy named Paul. And so she comes up to the party saying that her husband, Paul, is missing. She knows where he's at, though, because the story she tells them is they were out camping, and while they were out camping off to the west of here, they're actually jumped by a large group of gnolls. So quick thinking by Paul kind of tries to hold him off and tells Samantha to run. So she runs back to town. Paul actually gets captured by these gnolls. So at this point, obviously Samantha's now coming to the party to ask him to, hey, please, can you go get my husband from these gnolls? And the party they don't even hesitate. I'm sorry, I'm losing my words here. They don't even hesitate, and so they agree to they're gonna go rescue Paul. So they immediately head out to this gnoll stronghold that's to the west. So they head out. The journey takes them about roughly 8 to 10 hours to actually get there, and so they're going along. Actually, they decide to camp before they get there, because as they're going along, it's gonna take them so long to where it starts becoming dark, and it's about 9 to 10 p.m. at night when they get about halfway. So they decide to camp, and as they're camping, it was actually Devia that was keeping watch this night, and as she was keeping watch, off in the background, she could hear a faint, very faint, sounded like strumming, like really off-key kind of sound. Sounded like, music, but it was really off-key. Someone who had no idea what they were doing, playing an instrument. So that's what she hears. Nothing really of note happens that night. So the next morning, after eating and getting ready for what's probably going to be a battle, the party head out, and a couple hours later, they make it to the Gnoll stronghold. And as they make it to the Gnoll stronghold, picture there's a ravine, and then there's obviously a bridge to go over it, a wooden bridge. And as you get over it, there's some cliffs, and kind of going upwards is a ramp that leads to the Gnoll stronghold, and the Gnoll stronghold is kind of up here. So, and it has kind of a lower section like this and an upper section keep with a roughly 2 to 3 towers, roughly. They're not huge by any means. So as they get to the edge of the bridge, about to cross the ravine, the party realizes it's in the middle of the day that the gnolls up on the fortress have all their bows and arrows trained on them. So the three of them just kind of look at each other, thinking to themselves, "Okay, we're gonna do this, right?" So the three of them agree, "Yeah, we're gonna attack this place." Before they do realize in one of those towers, kind of off to the very back of the keep, they do roll perception, a high perception roll, to notice that Paul is still alive, that he's back in one of those towers. So the party devises a plan that Devia is actually going to stay kind of back at this position, get a little bit closer on the bridge, but stay back at this position, kind of cover Taviri and Rowan as they get closer to the stronghold. So as Taviri and Rowan charge, Devia starts releasing her arrows, and Taviri, like I said, she has her flying now, so she actually goes leaping up in the air and goes charging right up on that second level of the stronghold. And picture just arrows flying down at the party as the gnolls release all their arrows and start to reload. And Rowan's charging up. She's trying to get to where the start of that ramp is, and as she does, she actually gets up to one of the rock faces and kind of stays there for just a moment to catch her breath. At this point, Taviri has made it up to that second level. She flew up there, made it to the second level, and she starts attacking the gnolls with her quarterstaff, kind of beating the crap out of some gnolls. And so as she's doing this, even some of the gnolls are flying off the edge of the keep. And one of the Knowles in particular is sort of the leader of this group, a Knoll veteran in particular, and he's he's up on that second level with Taveri, and one of the Knolls right next to him uh, was firing at Devia and missed badly. And after he missed badly, the veteran just kind of turns to his subordinate and or not subordinate, I'm sorry, his minion, and picks him up and throws him down towards Taveri. Not Taveri, Devia. I'm so sorry. And Devia is still on that bridge. So the knoll hits the back of the bridge, and the rope starts snapping. And Devia kind of looks back. She then looks forward, all wide-eyed, and she starts running, trying to get across this bridge, but she does not make it. The bridge collapses, and she starts falling down towards the ravine, which is a pretty large drop. And so she is just able to catch herself on some of the bottom of the bottom of the bridge as it's just hanging there. So she's now just hanging on this bridge for dear life, trying not to fall. Rowan at this point at the bottom of the fortress is kind of aiming up now with her with her arrows, but with her bow. God, I'm sorry, and is starting to shoot down a couple of the knolls. And the frogs that she had, she casts, does her hunter's mark. So she throws one of her frogs up at the knolls and then shoots it and whatnot. So all this happens, and Devia starts making her way, trying to make her way up on the bridge to climb herself up. And at this point, the veteran knoll, he's shooting down at Devia, trying to aim towards the bridge again to kind of cut it free to make Devia drop. Thankfully, Devia makes it to the top of the bridge before any of that happens. So she makes it, and she starts running towards where Rowan is at. Taveri at this point has kind of made it to where the area where the Knoll veteran is at. And so she starts kind of, engaging the Knoll veteran, kind of locked into this epic combat with it. Rowan's trying to support her, shooting up arrows, kind of changing out some arrows for arrows of biting. And Devia had the brilliant idea at this point that she, off in the distance, she sees Paul. He's in line of sight. So she has this one ability that she had early on, I want to say the start of this campaign, called Invoke Duplicity. And what that does is she can make an illusion of herself that she can move freely, and she can't attack with it, but she can cast her spells, any spell through it. So she casts that, and she starts moving it up towards, up the ramp, up towards the fortress. So as she's doing that, Rowan's still trying to help Taveri take out the knolls up above. And at a certain point, Devia's illusion gets to where Paul is at. And Paul just kind of looks up, kind of in a daze. And at this point, Devia had the brilliant idea that she's going to get Paul out of here by using that scroll, the Word of Recall. So she successfully cast the scroll, and it, I forgot to mention this, but she previously had set the sanctuary point for the scroll back at Nashkel. So as she cast it on Paul, he immediately teleports. He teleports, and he goes back, and that sends him back to Nashkel unharmed. So they successfully get him out of there. And it's at this point, Taveri is still locked in combat with that veteran knoll. And it's at this point, Devia and Rowan start kind of making their way up the ramp. There's a few more knolls at the top of the ramp, kind of in the lower section, that Rowan and Devia fend off. And they kind of circle their way around to the second level, but towards the back of it. So then, as they get to the back of it, they raise up their bows in unison and start shooting towards the veteran and the other knolls. And after this epic fight, the party successfully takes down all these knolls in this stronghold. I might not be doing it justice here, describing it, but it was awesome. I honestly thought they, like, at least one of the party members might have died during this, but they're successful with this, and it was great. So they start looking around at the Knoll stronghold, kind of gathering up. I think it was Taveri that had the idea that, we're gonna have proof that we did this. We're gonna take back the Knoll, each Knoll's tails with us, and bring them back to Nashkel, bring them back to the mayor as proof. So they gathered those up. They also found one interesting thing while at the stronghold is they found some writing that apparently there's a Knoll chieftain that was the head of this group that it wasn't here, but that he had basically told his Knolls to stay here for the time. He was actually going to go off and help a half ogre named Tazak. So the party, recognizing the name Tazak, they said, huh. They kind of put two and two together, and they really want to find Tazak now. So afterwards, after gathering up what they could at the stronghold, they decide to head back. But there's a problem. The bridge is out. And so they have this massive ravine that they have to cross, this cliff edge. So, of course, Taveri's like, no problem. I'll just carry you guys back. I have my flying back, so I'll just carry you guys. So she at first says, okay, Rowan, you're the smallest, so I'll carry you first. So she picks up Rowan and with ease carries her on to the other side of the ravine and then comes back. So she comes back and she's like, all right, Divya, it's your turn. So she starts to bring Divya back, and she, if I remember correctly, she either, I want to say, almost loses Divya in the process, almost dropping her. But they do make it to the other side. But it was close. So afterwards, they start making their way back to Nashkel, feeling really proud of themselves that they took on that Knoll stronghold successfully. So they, once again, out in the wilderness, they camp for the night. And, oh, I'm so sorry. One last thing that they found at the Knoll stronghold was Perdue's loot. I can't believe I almost forgot about this. But, so yeah, they actually found it on one of the knolls that's the sound Divya was hearing during the night. Was, one of the knolls was just trying to play the lute. So these were the same knolls. So they found the lute and they got it in their possession now. So, like I said, they're heading back to Nashkel. They camped for the night, and it's now the next morning. And they, a couple hours into the trip, they made it back to Nashkel, no problem. Taveri immediately goes to the leather worker to find her, retrieve her hat, which it looks beautiful. It's finely made, and I want to say at this point, Taveri even tipped him a little bit more because of just the excellent work that the craftsman did. And so they kind of regroup in the center of town. They go up to the mayor, Baron, and they immediately show him all these gnolls that they just killed, the tails, and he thanks them for taking out this stronghold, and with some convincing with Rowan and Taveri, he pays them a really good chunk of change for this, at least a couple thousand, I want to say. So he's really happy. He also, at this point, mentions that they have been having some trouble of their own here in Nashkel. That they need the party, that he needs the party to investigate their mines for them. That they've had reports of some of their miners going missing, and apparently there's only been one miner to come back from the mines, and he said that there was some kind of monster infestation going on. But from what the mayor was saying, he was scared to death, so he's not sure what exactly. He was kind of at a loss for words. The miner was. So the party agrees that, oh yeah, they'll check out these mines, no problem. And it was at this point Samantha and Paul actually come from their manor and greet the party, and Samantha gives everybody a hug and says, thank you so much for rescuing my husband. And she actually pays the party at this point several more thousand gold. So the party once again has a large amount of money now. So afterwards, Samantha and Paul they go back to their manor, and Baron, he said he's gonna go back, check on a few things in town, and it's at this point that the party, all of a sudden, coming from the south, sees a large dust cloud coming over the horizon, and as it gets closer and closer, they notice that 40 more soldiers are approaching the town of Nashkel.